my thought today is the lost coin syndrome. And when I read the scripture, you'll understand why. The lost coin syndrome. Many people today in church or in the world, it's not just in church, it's in the world, have what I call the lost coin syndrome. And they've lost their joy. They can't, and we got to find joy, but finding joy is in finding what is lost first. If you go to Luke 15, verses 8, it says, either that woman having 10 pieces of silver, if she lose one piece, doth light a candle, and sweep the house, and seek diligently till she find it. And when she hath found it, she called her friends and her neighbors together, saying, rejoice with me, for I have found the piece which I had lost. Likewise I say unto you, there is joy in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner that repenteth. Notice in this passage that this woman, it says that she it says having 10 pieces of silver. If she lose one piece, doth light a candle. Now, the way the passage reads, it kind of indicates that she had lost money in her own house. How many of us have ever lost something in our own house? I do every day, probably. My wife, normally I'll say, Katie, where can I find this? And then normally it's right in front of my face, but I'm a typical man, so I'm not the best at finding stuff sometimes. Katie's great at it, though. But we lose things in our own house, and we do this with what matters the most to us. When you really do some studying into, the actual coin that was lost, and customs around that time, oftentimes what women would do was they would have a special coin that they'd wear around their neck on a silver chain, and it was around the head. It was to mark a married woman in this area at that time. And when I was praying on this, we're to be married, to the Word, to married to His will, and oftentimes we lose sight of what we're supposed to do, and we lose sight of our priorities. But she had to sweep the house, meaning she had to move some furniture. She had to, but it says she had to light a candle. Well, that light, sometimes we need more knowledge on the situation, don't we? Oftentimes we will lose sight of our priorities. We will forget what our true assignment is, and we get to feeling really good outside of that assignment. We get to making money, we get to making friends, and we get to dwelling over here, and we forget the humility. Because one thing that comes back to me every week lately when I'm studying is, humility and knowing why you're here. Those two things go hand in hand, but we forget why we're here. We lose that humility, and then we wake up one day and we realize, wait a minute, something that was once important to me is gone. And it's hard to lose things. It's, especially when it's important, especially when it signifies a relationship, when it signifies commitment. But she had to, sweep the house. Sometimes the problems are the way they are in our life because we haven't swept our house in a long time. Because we've been continuing around. It's that phrase of if you carry the same problems everywhere you go, things are going to stay the same. I know a lot of people, both young and old, that are always switching jobs. And the problem's not the job. The problem's their mental health. The problem's not the job. The problem's their work ethic and their anger and their unresolved conflict inside. But many times we don't want to sweep our house, we don't want to put the work in, and we don't want to light a candle. We don't want any more knowledge on the situation, because that light is always knowledge. But we'd rather remain in the dark, trapped in our own oblivion, our own lostness. Just like when they were wandering. A short trip can take 40 years if you let it. Deliverance that I wish I had not have prolonged. One of like I said, my biggest regret in life is wasting years and not addressing problems with deliverance that I needed. And when I was reading this passage, something came to me when I was praying. This sounds like an odd phrase, but the carelessness of need. Think about this: the carelessness of need. If you really want to find something, and if you really want to find your peace, and if you really need deliverance, you have to come to a place where you have a careless need. Meaning your need outweighs your pride. You have to, that way that you're not caring about judgment. You're not caring about friends. You're not caring about everybody that might look at you and throw stones. It's just like a tooth. When you have an abscess, You might can live with it for a few days, but and I don't do well at the dentist, so I'm gonna prolong dentist work as long as I can. I'm the only patient I know that's got red flags all over my chart. I don't act like a minister at the dentist. I lost my, I had struggled with faith there one time and came up off the table. But when we have a need that gets bad enough, because you think about it, when that pain starts hurting bad enough, and you add a numbing medication, you'll do what you need to do to get peace. The reason that you haven't gotten peace is because you've been able to numb it thus far. You've been able to take a pill. You've been able to watch a TV show and zone out. You've been able to keep going day after day in your own routine and forget what you truly need. But there's something that you need deliverance from, and we don't address it. It's just like Novocaine. Novocaine numbs it. And you can keep applying that Novocaine at home. They sell a little stuff from Walmart. You put you some Novocaine, some tea tree oil in there. But when that thing gets bad enough, you're going to let him cut. You're going to let him do what he needs to do. You're going to go to the dentist and let him, you don't care. As much as I don't like going, it's a good thing when you get him to cut that abscess tooth out. You be done with it. But you have to come to a carelessness of need place where your pride is not keeping you from seeking help. We do this mentally, we do it physically, we do it spiritually. So, and we should have a natural instinct to seek deliverance, but unfortunately flesh and the programming and all the things that go on throws us off. But, when it gets bad enough, but many of us have a spiritual abscess. An abscess, it boils up under it starts under the skin, and it's infection that's stirring. And instead of receiving those spiritual antibiotics that we need to receive, what do? We let it grow. We let it grow. And we carry around all this infection until it comes where it gets your attention because of the pain. Well, we should have addressed that infection before the pain got so bad. It shouldn't have taken this pain. It shouldn't have taken this situation. It shouldn't have taken, a complete loss of voluntary will based on comfort to seek help. But it often does because people are stubborn. So, think about this in that sense of, the lost coin syndrome. Many of us have such a need to sweep our house, to take an inventory, to know what's going on. I had someone reach out to me this past week and was struggling with something. And I said, you need to do an inventory of everything in your life that could have an attachment to what you're struggling with. We want to weed things out and pretend like one thing isn't as great as another, but one bad word is just as same as the other. One habit is the same as the other. God is in the business of bringing those that are lost because He created us. He gives us our assignment, gives our purpose. But, the lost belong to God whether they know it or not. But we need to know where we are. We need to know what we're doing. We need to know who we are. The thing is that piece of silver was lost, but it was still claimed. And that's kind of how we are. We get confused, we wonder, we stumble. Notice the lady, when she lost the possession, she lost sight of it, but she didn't lose right of it. Think about it. There are many things in your life that you can't see, and the enemy would have you believe that you'll never be whole, never be delivered, never be healed, never not struggle with sadness, never not struggle with depression, never not struggle with grief, because you've lost sight of hope at that time. You've lost sight of comfort. You've lost sight of faith. You've lost sight of what looks good to the physical. But just because you've lost sight of it does not mean that you've lost right of it. In and through your identity, in and through who you are, in and through who God made you to be, and your assignment here, you have right to that deliverance, right to that peace, right to that hope. But you need to sweep the house and you need to shed light on the situation. It's amazing how knowing what's going on changes somebody's perspective on things. Same example with the dentist. Just anybody and everybody cutting on you, you can't let that happen. But the right person, when you have the right need, that's the answer to alleviate your pain. Many times we want to allow people in our home and in our life that are the wrong people, that they can't even help that abscess. They're going to make the abscess worse. We allow jobs, we allow physical possessions, we allow distractions, habits, thought processes, negativity. I was praying last night and something came to me, because the victim mentality is also a big contributor to what I call lost coin syndrome. We become a victim in life. We go through some things and we lose sight of hope, and then we start to speak negativity. And we feel like, we start feeling like we're so entitled, like the world owes us because we've been beat down. We've all been beat down in a certain way. We've all gone through trials. It's real easy to feel like you're the only person going through a certain trial or situation when you're going through it. But rest assured, somebody else has been through that. And in and through the kingdom, we can grow and we can come through this together. We're not meant to be isolated. But, that lost coin syndrome will turn you into a victim. And what can a victim do? Nothing but make a statement. Think about it. Like when the police come, something happens, or somebody's been assaulted, they always want to get a statement. All you can do as a victim until you're ready to claim your deliverance, and maybe you lost sight of it, but you haven't lost right of it, all you can do as a victim is make a statement. Talk about it. How many people do you know that's always talking about, well, I need to do this, I need to do that, and I've been one of them. I've struggled with addictions, I've struggled with mindset, many things in life, and I was the first one to tell somebody, I need to do that, I need to, and my family members that were praying for me, and even my dad, but everybody needs an honest person in their life, somebody that's going to give it to you uncensored. For me, it was my granddad, my grandparents, but my dad. My dad was that uncensored individual. And I remember he told me one day, well, son, when you going to start working on it? You've been talking about this for a long time now. When's the work going to begin? And it's true. That's why, again, we need the right people in our lives to overcome this. But people lose sight of things, and they lose sight of priorities. And truly, this is a lesson in accountability, too, with this woman, because it's a parable. He gave this in a parable to relate to life. People in your life are right where you put them. Many times we have bad situations with family, co-workers, friends, and we're the blame. But do we want to take the blame? No. But oftentimes, we're the one that ain't called that person in 10 years. We're the one that hasn't said a kind word. We're the one gossiping. We're the one being the victim. We're the one always speaking ill. We're the one that's always saying, the world is not the right place for me. I don't have any work here. Just all that negativity. And if you speak it, as they say down south, it is what it is. But what we need to know is, again, we got to claim these things. These possessions have been given to us because of who we are. We know Christ. We know the way back to the Father. Therefore, we have a right to that peace. I'm not meant to be a victim. I'm not meant to every day speak that negativity and speak that talk. Mr. Raymond called it mully grub. You don't have a right to be a mully grubber, because that's poverty. Poverty is complaining. But prosperity is being grateful. But we lose sight of things, and then the enemy isolates us. We get in our little corner. And then we want to blame the other person, don't we? We'll say, well, that person ain't talked to me in 10 years. Well, have you made an effort? No. But then we want to blame it on the other person always. But part of being humbled in God's grace is having accountability. Having accountability. Taking the blame for what we've done so we can work on this together. But instead, what the enemy would have you do is be a victim. Because he's an accuser. He's a prosecutor. He's great at making people victims. And in having the right accountability, there's a difference between responsibility and reacting. So the woman noticed that this piece of silver was missing. She swept the house and she lit a candle. She moved some things. Well, spiritually, I need to remove some habits. I need to remove some activities I've been doing. I need to remove some negative things that I know I shouldn't be doing. And we all have something in our life today. I do too. We all do have something in our life we know we need to cut out because we know it ain't good for us. That's what moving and sweeping the house is. And then shedding the light on it is applying that word to it and applying the Spirit, the knowledge of the Spirit to the situation to reveal that deliverance to me. Because in discernment, if you can't discern, you can't shed light on things. But accountability, because he gives us a good sense of accountability. We just don't realize it. And when I was praying over this scripture, the thought came to me, there's a difference between responsibility and reacting. See, this woman was responsible. What does it mean to be responsible? You respond to the situation with the ability that God gives you. Well, what is the difference between that and reacting? And when you react to something, all you do is mirror what's going on. That's why you ever go to work and you walk into an office that's stressed out and then suddenly you stress because you start reacting to that same energy? Or you ever get around, I know certain family members that they don't need to be around each other because one's going to be negative and the other one's going to react. In my line of work, we call that codependency, where two people are bad influences on each other because they both bring each other down. But when I react, all I do is mirror what's going on. That's why reacting will get you bound in addiction. Reacting will get you bound in anger, bound in fear. Because reacting is what the world does. We're to be responsible and respond to the situation with the ability that God has given us. When I react, I fight fire with fire. Well, that might work in a certain scenario, but there's situations you don't need fire. You need to throw water on it. You need to throw living water on it and put that fire out before it burns your house down. But instead, pride will keep us with that fire on it. Anger and envy and greed. So we have to do something different in order to get a different response. Apparently her organization method hadn't been working out, so she swept the house, shined light on it. She was willing to do something different. If you're not willing to do something different, how do you expect deliverance? How do you expect a positive mindset and to enjoy and love life if you're not even willing to speak positivity? Again, Scripture gives us all this. But reacting is a sign of what I call emotional amnesia and delusion. And there's different kinds of amnesia. There's the physical kind and psychological kind. Sometimes you have a brain injury. Doesn't work right, but the thing with the psychological kind is your mind works correctly, and you don't even realize you're forgetting. But there's a problem with the way the neurons and the synapses fire. And what it'll do when we have spiritual amnesia, you know what it causes us to do? It causes us to give life to our problems instead of our deliverance. For example, in a physical sense, how many times you ever lost your keys, car keys? And I can preach it myself. I had this happen to me when I was out of town at the conference. I had lost my car keys. Well, and I had the car keys in a sensible place, but my mind was not thinking sensible. I was stressed out, didn't want to be there. And I got angry at the pure car keys. An inanimate object. Them car keys ain't done nothing to me. But I said, these stupid keys that made me lose them. When you get angry at an inanimate object, you're giving life to your problems. But we do this think about marriage problems. Or think about family problems. How many times do you have a conflict with somebody, and instead of getting to why you're having that conflict and solving the actual problem, what do? You circumvent and you focus your attention on something that's completely irrelevant, and you direct your anger that way, and before you know it, you've done built a whole figure that's not even real, and you've done brought a problem to life. It's like when I mentioned several Sundays ago, the way women and men respond to things differently. Women are passionate. Their emotions bring life to situations, even if it shouldn't be brought to it. And men can do it too. But people respond differently. So we have to make sure that we are being responsive. And not everybody in your life is got a good responsibility. Some people don't have an ability to respond correctly. Some people struggle with doubt and struggle with anger. And that they need deliverance. They need deliverance. But again, they will cease struggling when their need overrides their pride. It's like the song, I can't even walk without you holding my hand. I thought I was, we think we're mighty big men until the right trial comes along in our life and completely knocks us off our feet. And if you think you can't be knocked off your feet, hold on. It's going to happen sooner or later. All of us go through something like that. But notice when she finally found what she was looking for, what was her response? She rejoiced. She said, likewise I say unto you, there's joy in the presence of the angels of God, or one said that repenteth. It says, when she found it, she called her friends and her neighbors together, saying, rejoice with me. If you're not in a place of rejoicing, you need treatment for lost coin syndrome. You need treatment for spiritual amnesia. You need treatment for, carelessness needs. You need treatment for these problems because believers should be happy. We all struggle with, emotions and depression and thought process, but if you're always in a state of the opposite of rejoicing, and we know what that state is, then you need deliverance. You need to sweep the house. You need to shine the light. You need to know the value of claiming what is yours and the value of yourself and in and through your testimony, in and through what Christ done. So many people, they're just prolonging sweeping that house. But one single coin. The problem is we carry that coin every day. We'll carry what we need, but we don't think it's worth sweeping the house to bring this coin in our life. When that coin is what we need more, because again, it signifies who we are. Your identity is in the Word. Your past, present, and future is in the Word. So while you're sweeping the house for things that don't matter, you need to find what truly matters. And we do this with so many things. We want to look outside. People in church want to look outside the church for people. Instead of putting people active in their own church, they'll want to put, we need to find this person, that person. No, God has placed who you need right there, right there in the situation. People do that with friends, family. Instead of letting God develop and create a mighty warrior or a minister, musician, servant. That's what we all should be, servant. We'll want to look outside, and we overlook the treasures we have right there in our home, right there in our backyard. People do this with family members, churches. Sometimes you have a whole treasure of a family, and you don't even realize it, and you need to sweep your house and thank God for that family He's give you. Because I deal with a lot of people that don't have family. They don't have friends. Like I said, I had a client a couple months ago. His mom lived 10 miles away, and he said, that's not my problem. A mother died in the home. So if you have a family, it's worth sweeping your home to find that treasure again. So we need to realize our deliverance. Notice, and also part of her rejoicing, she was naturally happy. Religious leaders of that time, they were trying to collect all the taxes from this. And that's another thing that stuck out. The taxation that occurred during that day. We think taxes are bad now. They were bad then. But this woman was willing to sweep her house for this one coin because she knew the importance of it. And she knew the importance of the one. We need to realize that we are that one. And our family is that one. And our brother and sister is that one. We need to quit downing ourselves. We need to quit, prolonging our deliverance due to this lost coin syndrome. We need to shed light on the situation. Sweep the house. No, it says seek diligently till she finds it. Problem is we start seeking and we give up before we find it. Then the seeking's of no good. So, there's many things, and we all have a situation that is like this in our life. Something that we've been reacting to, we haven't been responding to. We all have a weakness. But we can be delivered from those weaknesses. We can be delivered from those spiritual abscesses. We don't have to continue to carry around the abscess and numb it with Novocaine. Notice people that are numb, they still got the pain. The pain is still there. Being numb does not take away the pain. I know people that lose people and they turn to addiction. That person's still gone. Drugs and alcohol doesn't bring them back. I know people that are not happy with their family life and they turn to things they shouldn't. They turn to self-sabotaging modes, but that still doesn't change the problems. So if we will realize the treasure that is within, he said, repent, the kingdom's at hand, the kingdom's within. If we'd realize that and live like that and seek our deliverance, we'd all make it back home, which is what we're called to do. So, this passage stuck out to me. I wanted to share it with you today. And notice last thing, actually, before I close. She had deliberate intent. When I'm seeking my deliverance, I've got to have deliberate intent. Nobody gets accidentally delivered because you were called according. It was meant to be if you are delivered. See, we have to have deliberate intent. God looks at our intentions. But don't let your emotions, your fear and your anger and that old mouth that says things that shouldn't override your good intentions. Good intentions alone is not enough, though. We have to dismiss that confusion. God's not the author of confusion. Dismiss that negativity. But we all can find joy in what's lost because we can be found. Many people, they're not lost. They're just being robbed. That's like I say, many people aren't spiritually broke. They're just letting the enemy rob them. But He provides comfort. He provides peace. He provides joy. He provides what I need if I'll prioritize things correctly. These altars open if anyone needs prayer.